Ivo-san, how are you doing today?
Adi, very good. Thanks, man. How are you?
I'm doing good. Let's cut the chit chat. Let's get straight into it, Ivo. So, what does
Let's do
Powerhouse
it.
do? Like, tell us in 60 seconds.
Yeah, so we are a scanning platform for warehouses using Vision AI. You can imagine us as a company that scans everything from documents to labels that are barcoded, labels that are not barcoded, but even pallets, telling you how many pallets or how many boxes are on a pallet. All in all, to support warehouse operators to become more productive and more accurate. Solution runs on the phone or can be white labeled and run on your drones or robotic solutions as well.
Amazing. So, you just point the phone and it does all of these things in a warehouse.
Exactly.
Awesome. So, Ivo, how big is the team and how is it structured at the moment?
Yeah. So we are six people at the moment. Five people are in technology, and one person in business we are talking to now. So
Nice.
that's in short how we're organized for now, keeping it
Got
lean.
it. So, then I take it that you're the person who is like looking after all the growth and marketing efforts, sort of like a one man army,
Yeah.
if you will.
Yes. Yeah, correct.
Got it. Got it.
Experimenting now with like an agency, experimenting with like hiring PR, but at this moment it's me. Yeah.
Okay, love that. So we'll definitely dive into that in a second because I run an agency, so kind of hurt you haven't asked me. But
Yeah.
anyways, so how long did it take you to get your
That
first
hurts.
customer?
Joking. How long did it take us? Okay. And then you mean like point to first contact to a signed contract?
No, I mean like when you started the business, how long did it take you from the day you started working on Powerhouse till the day
Yeah,
you had your first
yeah.
customer closed?
Okay. Quite a long time. I think it took more than a year, and it had a couple of reasons. First of all, because we pivoted, and secondly, because we run quite a long pilot with a couple of customers before we actually sign them as a paying client. I think last year we spent most of the time actually piloting the solution, developing it, and we signed our first customer around September last year.
Got it.
So
Got
it
it.
took some time.
I mean, you figured it out now. So, like, can you tell us a little bit about what channels you're typically using? I'm assuming it's something like account-based sales and emails or
hmm
LinkedIn, but would love to hear more about that.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's a direct sales approach. So we don't necessarily do marketing. So our growth effort mainly is sales, is direct sales. What helps for us, mainly LinkedIn, actually.
Hmm.
Emails we haven't had that much success with. I'm now experimenting going back to it, going back to more personalized, going back to more mass as well. But I see some geographical differences as well with the success
Hmm.
rate of both of these channels.
Got it. Like, tell us a little bit more about the LinkedIn stuff because we have a bunch of founders who are, also in B2B who sort of look at LinkedIn
hmm
as a very expensive channel. Like ads on LinkedIn are typically like a lot more expensive than, your usual
hmm
suspects. So like tell us a little bit about
hmm
how you're harnessing LinkedIn for Powerhouse.
Yeah, so for us, it actually has been very cheap. I'd say only require a sales navigator license and some kind of automation tool. So we've been using Meet Alfred, which has been
Hmm.
great for us. And it's very similar to email. So you create a good filter, a good ICP, a customer persona, and then you just reach out connection requests and LN mails or connection messages.
So you sort of have a
That has been
sequence
working
built
for us.
in where you put in the leads
Yeah,
in Sales Navigator. Awesome.
yeah,
Like, do
yeah.
you do any sort of ads on LinkedIn, or is it just the outbound approach for the moment?
Only outbound at the moment. Yeah.
Got it. Sweet. Like, can you share any numbers around like what sort of reply rates you're getting, or any numbers you can share around conversion?
Yeah, that's a good one. Okay. If talk about like acceptance of connection request, it's kind of floating around 20 to 35%.
Mm.
Surprisingly, when we started experimenting with having no connection message,
It
it
works
was
better,
more
right?
towards the higher side.
Surprisingly.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't know if it is because of the title, like being CEO founder. So I don't know if it works for everyone, but this works for us. Here,
Honestly, it's been
same
the
experience.
experience. Yeah, with a bunch of like myself and a bunch of our clients. I My thesis is because the only people who put in enough effort to add something in a connection request
hmm
message are the ones who want to sell you something. So I think people
Ah,
are kind of
yeah.
wary of that. So it seems more
Yeah,
organic to just send a blank connection request.
yeah, yeah, exactly. But I can imagine if you have in your title sales or marketing, at least if I look from my own perspective and I get connection requests from sales and marketing as well, I tend to reject quicker
Mm,
than if it's somebody else who could, for example, be a potential candidate
interesting.
to join our
Makes sense.
team, let's say. So I can imagine more people might think that way.
I would almost imagine that, yeah, on one hand, you have higher rejections, but on the other hand, anybody who's in the market right now for a solution would probably respond. Like, the
Yeah,
signal to noise will be higher if you like signal clearly what it is that you're doing. On that
that's
subject,
true.
I've
Yeah,
actually
some
been
pre-qualification. So, some pre-qualification never hurts.
like,
It's all about getting to know the quickest as possible, right?
absolutely. I have actually been experimenting a little bit with my LinkedIn byline. So my current one, would
Hmm.
love your take on it, is your AR is not my son, but I will still raise it.
Ha, it's funny. I
Yeah,
think that helps. Yeah,
that's what
that
I'm going
helps.
for,
Uh,
essentially.
I think fun can help a lot. I saw even maybe we're going a little on a tangent. I saw like a funny unsubscribe button, which was very hard to kind of click because there was a fan that would move your cursor away from the unsubscribe button. It could
That is
even be a reason to just keep on being a subscriber because they really thought about this
that is
funny
so funny.
unsubscribe procedure.
Yeah. Do you remember what tool it was? That would be pretty cool. I'll link the tool.
I do not. I should check.
No worries. So Ivo, so you were telling us about, how long it took you to get your first customer. Now, with the insights that you have
Mhm,
now, if you could go back in time and give yourself some advice regarding getting customers, what would it be?
mhm. I think two things. First of all, sales is all about building a cadence. It's about being disciplined and indeed not taking a week of break and then going back at it. Like the payoff comes after a while of working. Another one which has
Mm,
been very important for us is do the hard work before. So like in the program that we both followed, like EF, it was all about getting a signed pilot, getting LOIs as soon as possible. I think the goal shouldn't be to get to a signed pilot as soon as possible. It should be towards qualifying your client. Like we had a couple of instances where we started doing a pilot and in the end figured out that the success criteria that they were striving for were not compatible with our product. So it means that
interesting.
we both of us, both the client and us, we have wasted our time, and you better spend a little bit more time beforehand before you actually really start building or configuring or really investing a lot of time.
Got it. That's really interesting. That's solid advice. I think, especially like also your first point about being disciplined. I mean, I've seen it so many
Hmm.
times. Founders will set up like two domains and five email accounts, and
Yeah,
the bottleneck is actually not how
yeah,
many emails they're sending, but just discipline and consistency regarding just sitting down and
yeah,
getting those leads generated and sending those emails out, outbound messages out.
yeah,
Awesome. So Eva, then let's switch gears for a second. Like, I want to hear about, what's the
yeah.
most ridiculous thing you've done in the name of growth, which failed. So give me a bad
Mm.
outcome first.
Ah, yeah, yeah. Okay. I think we haven't done really crazy stuff. Like in the end, our sector is also a bit conservative. We've been mainly focusing on direct sales. What I figured never helps is like referrals have not been very successful for us. That so yeah, we're trying to design that in order to incentivize referring.
Mm,
But multiple times when we contact partners and they're thinking and discussing about referring it, it never really worked for us. So we're now working on like a kind of incentive structure to get that going as well. But no crazy ridiculous stuff on our side with respect to
got it.
growth.
And what's the, in terms of dollars, like the biggest investment you've made in growth or sales that worked out well?
For us, it's mainly time. We are very lean with our growth expenditures. So the only thing where we spend on at this moment is some tooling. And I said, yeah, now experimenting with a lead generation agency. That's of course a little bit more expensive, but we've mainly been doing it with very little expenditure.
Got it. What about the yacht party that you invited me and all your friends to? I thought that was a sales expense, but never mind.
Ah, yeah. I should have. That would have lowered my taxes.
Exactly, right?
Thanks, Adi.
So
You're selling yourself very well now.
thank you. Thank you. So You were talking about Meet
Yeah.
Alfred just a little bit ago. So,
Yeah.
like, I want to know what's your absolute favorite one digital tool or resource that you just can't live without when it comes to sales and growth.
I think Meet Alfred is a great tool in combination with Superhuman.
Hmm.
That's sufficient. I think at this moment, especially when you are pre-product market fit, it's important not to organize or like set up too many fixed processes and systems because that will change anyway. Because a lot of things and levers are changing. So in that sense, we are also still experimenting what are our best, sales channels, sales procedures. So the more you fix it into tooling and the more time you spend into money you spend into tooling, there's a high chance it would turn out to waste. So yeah, I'd really
Hmm.
recommend stay lean. Don't use that much tooling, but like a tool like Meet Alpha that saved us a lot of time without actually getting our LinkedIn account blocked. We
Hmm.
used
That's a big one.
what's this other tool called? Yeah, Duck Soup, I believe. Yeah, that's terrible. I got my LinkedIn account blocked every
Oh,
time. And Meet Alpha, they have a different way. It works perfectly.
yeah. I mean, I think that's a good point that Duck Soup, it's known for getting accounts blocked, and you really don't want to get your
Yeah,
personal LinkedIn account blocked. I think that would be quite
exactly.
tragic, especially if you've been putting content out for a
Yeah,
while. Yeah. So
that's right.
on the subject of content, Evo, what's your recommendation for our listeners for either a book or a podcast
Yeah.
that has influenced the way you think
Okay,
about
okay.
startups?
Yeah, first of all, since we're talking about growth and sales, I'd actually go for books. There's a lot of resources out online, indeed, like blogs, articles, podcasts. It's very hard to get to know the quality of these
Yeah.
resources. So I'd go for time-tested books, stick with a couple. What helped me a lot in outreach, especially on the prospecting side, is the books of Jeb Blunt. I believe it's Fanatical Prospecting, Handling Objections.
Fanatical prospect.
Yeah, that has been very helpful. So read those, read maybe some sales books around, let's get real or let's not play, I believe, or gap selling, and then just get started and put it into practice.
Got it. No, I think that's bang on, especially, your point about how there's just so much content and resources out there, and it's only been amplified by stuff like GPT that it's like finding the signal in all
Yeah.
that noise has become so much harder.
But very confusing, to be honest. Very, very confusing. Because you get contradictory advice and you do not know the authority of the one that is actually putting that content out. And that, especially when you're a first-time founder and not necessarily have a lot of experience in sales, you need good advice in
Yeah.
that sense. So yeah, stick with proven resources
The time
like
tested
books.
ones. Yeah.
The time-tested
Absolutely.
one, yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, so you were mentioning that how in your team you're basically the only person who's looking after growth and marketing, and your ARR rests on your
Yeah.
shoulders. Have
Yeah.
you had any experiences collaborating with like freelancers, external experts, or agencies, and how did those experiences go?
Yeah, I'm now experimenting with an agency on sales. It just has been a couple of weeks, so I think it might be too early for me to already conclude. So they are lead generation. So they actually take over the LinkedIn outreach and email outreach. Very practical. I have to wrap my head around if this is ideal or not. If it works, it's great because I like working with freelancers, because it's a very productive kind of transactional type of relationship that's really focused, the time from me and the freelancer is really focused on getting this job done instead of all the management responsibilities that you would have if you have
Yeah.
somebody within the team. On the other hand, the disadvantage is sales is also an important capability that you probably want to build within your own company as well. So I have to see how it goes. I have to see how good the results are with the agency. It has been mixed until now, but I don't want to jump the gun too quickly. Yeah,
Makes sense. Makes sense. And especially like if sales is going to be a primary channel, I think in the long term you would probably want to build that muscle in house,
yeah. I
at
think
least.
indeed, like the more one time or more ad hoc type of advisory type of work, like setting up a sales strategy, for example, or thinking about that, thinking a lot. That I think for that, like freelancing or like agencies would be a lot more suitable. I've also worked with a sales coach for a while. That's just super useful to get like, the processes straight, way of thinking straight, and at a more had like the reach out stuff, it's probably good to either have in-house or have a very good agency. But yeah, it's
Got
not
it.
too easy to find.
I mean, makes perfect sense. Actually, you know what we do for a couple of our clients who use LinkedIn is we actually use email as the primary channel. So the cold outreach and everything
Okay.
is on email, but we use LinkedIn as a demand
Yeah.
gen layer where we run ads. But the goal of those ads
Yeah.
is to not collect leads or drive conversions. It's very targeted
Yeah.
ads for those specific accounts,
Yeah.
only aimed at driving awareness. So
Yeah.
it's sort of a
Okay.
pure play
Yeah.
awareness ads, and then a week or two, it's like so you see an ad today, and you see it for the
Yeah.
next week or so, and then after 5 or 6 days of you having
Yeah.
at least a couple of impressions on that ad, then we send a cold email to you. Then it's not cold per se; it's like slightly warmed up, and we've seen
Ah,
like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
statistically significant increase in reply rates from doing this. So you may want
That
to
makes
test that out.
sense. Yeah, yeah, it's a good tip. Yeah, yeah, it's kind of like the law of familiarity, right? So if
Exactly.
you
Like,
start posting on LinkedIn, it's similar instead of ads. But yeah, principles are the same. Yeah.
yeah, so that sort of two-step demand gen, we've seen like great success for our clients with that. Cool. So Ivo, before startups, I remember you told me you were in
Yeah.
big corporate. So how has
Yeah.
like have you ever questioned your career choice in startups, and do you ever feel like maybe it was a good decision or not so good decision?
Ah, in the end, I'm very happy with the decision. But did I question my decisions? Yes, sometimes, yeah. I mean, being a founder it's not easy, right? And really
It
has its
never is.
highs, but
Yeah,
it also has its lows. And I think the amplitude is much higher than if you are an employee. Yeah, so there have been moments. I think at the end of EF, like the Entrepreneurship First program, we were pretty much like we just had a couple of weeks. I believe I was one of the last team to actually got formed, and we only had 3 weeks in order, 3, 4 weeks in order to get investment. And at that point, I thought like, I just have 3, 4 weeks. I This is just too short in order
yeah,
to prove ourselves to the investment board or the investment committee. Yeah, at that point, I thought about it. We did manage, so that's great. Yeah, and once in a while, it had like it pops up, but then I also realized like actually what a privilege it is to be a founder in order to,
absolutely.
hold the steering wheel of life yourself. And I also realized, hey, we actually have a great product that can add a lot of value to our clients. So let's continue even through these downturns. Yeah.
Absolutely. Totally relate to that. I mean, some quick context for anybody listening in is that me and Evo, now we know each other for a couple of years now. So we went through this entrepreneurship program called Entrepreneur First, which is almost like a
Yeah.
reality show where you have 3 months to find a co-founder, find an idea, validate it, maybe build a product, maybe get a customer, and then the top ideas and top
Yeah.
teams get funded. So Evo and all of this builds up to sort of a demo day where you pitch to an investment committee. And most of the teams that got selected had been formed for 8 to 10 weeks. They had a good amount of time to experiment and talk to users and build their MVPs. But Evo's team was one of the youngest teams to get funded. I think they just formed like 5 minutes
Yeah.
before the demo day or something like that.
Pretty much.
uh,
Pretty much. Yeah.
always, always found that to be pretty amazing. So,
Yeah. It
Evo, we
was a
were
great
talking about
story. It
up.
is a great,
It is a great story, and it's not a story. I mean, it's the truth. So,
it's the truth. Yeah.
it's the truth.
Maybe not the 5 minutes, it was 6 minutes,
Yeah.
but hey, I appreciate it.
Hey, you can take a little bit of a poetic liberty with that, right? Um,
Exactly, exactly.
so, on the subject of ups and downs, what's the strangest or weirdest customer feedback or customer complaint that you've received, and how did you use it to drive growth? If you've ever had a case like that.
Mm, yeah, I think we at one time we had a customer and we were talking with them for quite a while. And then kind of out of the blue, they told us, yeah, like we shouldn't do this because if we become more efficient, we actually earn less money. So it's in our interest that we are less efficient because we charge our customers per hour.
Beautiful.
And if we save hours, we actually earn less. It's like, okay, that's interesting. So yeah, then we also ask about the charging model, how do our customers charge their customers? What are their incentives? And then we actually get back to the thing we discussed at the beginning of our chat is, yeah, do the prep work before. Because we had another customer where we worked with for a year then the roles changed. So our contact person changed because one left. And he, of course, started looking at the business case again, at the collaboration. And then he said, like, hey, but we currently do not pay our supplier for
Okay.
this particular service. So if we actually use your service, ROI would always be negative. So, like it's a similar one. It's again about the charging model, which wasn't clear to us, which unfortunately wasn't communicated, but we also didn't ask. Yeah, so that definitely is a big one for us. Yeah, really get the incentives straight.
Got it. I mean, talk about having perverse incentives set up during customer
Yeah,
discovery. So thanks a lot for your time, Ivo. I think this was
thanks, Adi.
pretty much everything we wanted to cover. For any of our listeners who may be in the warehousing space, you should definitely hit up Ivo and check out Powerhouse AI, provided that you want to increase efficiency and decrease the time you're spending
Yeah, that's an
driving.
important prerequisite.
It is an important prerequisite, as we've discovered in these 20 or so minutes.
Yeah,
Alrighty, best of luck and thank you.
thanks. Really enjoyed the chat, Adi. Cheers.